Welcome to the African Leadership Series, where we bring you great inspirational speeches from African leaders.
The first human, true modern human with our brain, case, etc., is an African woman about 140,000 years old. She has all the genetics, all the genes, rather, of the human race. Then you have the African fanning out. African goes up into Europe. The transformation occurs about pink skin, and then the ice would produce the long hair, you know, retention of long hair or the long hair follicles, etc. African is not only the first hominid, he's also the first human. Okay, the hominid is not completely human like us, but then comes the first human with our brain case. That's also African. And this begins to change about 55,000 years ago in Europe, where you get Africoid types becoming Caucasoid types, where you have what is called as Cro-Magnon man. This is the what we crudely call today white man, as against what we crudely call today black man. Okay, they're really just human beings, okay, but they undergo superficial changes, skin changes, etc. And later on you would have other changes like the narrow nose in ice versus the broader nose in heat, but you'd have the narrow nose also in dry heat, so that you would have superficial changes in the face of man related nothing to his intelligence, his brain, or anything, related to the environment, the amount of sun, the kind of food you eat in particular environments, the kind of qualities of heat, qualities of cold, etc. That pink African is the beginning of the European. Now, the pink African also started to undergo certain changes, like ice produces a narrow nose. The parts of Africa, you have Africans with narrow noses too, because dry heat produces the narrow nose. So that man is one. There are no races, really. You have the African as the beginning of the human race, but the others are mutations. They're not races in the true sense of the word. Race is a social concept. That was to come later. And after the slave trade, when Europe conquered Africa, etc., then blackness and color became associated with being in a low position, so that therefore colors and races became associated with certain things. Those are things that are going to pass as we recover our history and transform ourselves. But initially, you have the pink African who becomes the European. He undergoes certain changes over a period of time. For example, in the ice, it's important to have long hair to protect the neck from cold. In heat, it's important that you have short hair follicles so that heat can escape. These things have nothing to do with inferiority or superiority. They have to do with
environmental needs.
Environmental necessities, environmental imperatives. So that you would find in Africa, some people have narrow noses where there's dry heat. Some people have thinner lips, some people have fuller lips, some people have close cropped hair, some people have wavy hair, etc. This has nothing to do with inferiority or superiority. It doesn't even have anything to do with beauty. Because the first great Europeans who met the first great Africans, the Greeks, when they went to Egypt and they met the blacks, they thought black was beautiful. It was quite the opposite, because the first whites were so startled by black achievement in Egypt and so many whites came to study in Africa, in Egypt, that they associated great intelligence and great beauty with blackness. They actually began to take black gods, because the first, for example, Europeans started to worship Isis, the black goddess. They started to have temples to Isis. Eventually, later on, Horus, who was the son of Isis and the son of Osiris, the male and female aspects of God, Europe initially worshipped the black Christ. So that this kind of racism that later occurred after the slave trade, this assumption about blackness associated with inferiority, that's a later thing in history. And you see, we are overwhelmed at the moment by that period, so that we have forgotten what really happened in the history of the world.
If you like informative and educational videos on Africa, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to catch all our latest videos.